Hey guys, Mustached here to review the movie Bring Her Back. Now this movie is interesting as far as me figuring out that this even existed, as I have not seen any trailers for this. In fact, the only way I knew that this came out is I started seeing reviews pop up for it on my own YouTube feed. And to discover that this was an A24 film after the fact, they usually cook more often than not from what I've seen from what they let in. So that was fun to figure out after the fact. And diving into this movie as objectively as possible, we follow a pretty small knit of characters, primarily Piper, who is blind, and her brother, Andy, who have recently lost their father, who may have taken his own life based on them coming into the home as they did and getting shoved into the foster system. Now, it was discussed that there is a potentiality for them to get split apart, but Andy manages to argue them into getting into the same location. So they do so. So they get brought to this female guardian, who I'll just call the Guardian because I don't recall her name in the film, who seems to have another individual that is in the household with them named Oliver. And one thing I will immediately point out as this movie sort of progresses is something that is, fairly nice in a horror film, and that is that there is this no really quick, immediate, oh my god, I hate these characters sort of attitude within the writing. And that is so fucking refreshing to see in a movie, especially in the horror thriller side of things. So yeah, this is a really refreshing movie in terms of that and that alone, because I can tell you the amount of movies where the characters are just so annoying and you get on that train of, oh, I kind of want them to die. Luckily, that isn't present here. Even more so, you actually start to feel a connection between the individuals, Andy and Piper. You actually believe that Andy's trying his best to look out for her, and so on and so forth. So, she talks about how she had her own daughter who passed away at some juncture. And this is an interesting, because this is brought up relatively early when they get there. So that is a bit of an interesting flag. I'm not sure what flag color I would position it as in, but considering that she's bringing in new people, and that seems to be a bit of information that would, be prevalent to, because she's like I guess she is like a high-end Guardian type character that has actually, in accordance with the film itself, has been doing this for 20 years. So this already, in context, in retrospect, and now, and being able to talk about this review, does come across as an interesting type of flag. This little little nugget of information, as it were. But we do begin to see how the Guardian begins to probe Andy about what his whole deal is, trying to get a sneak peek about his phone, and trying to, see who he's talking to. It's never really established who he was addressing. It was just someone about something. I do think that could have potentially been a plot hole, as it doesn't really come back into the film, but I don't know. I feel like if he was texting somebody who could have made contact, then I think that there is a potential for a plot hole in this movie. So I do want to bring that forth in case the writers and directors come across this review. I don't want to say definitively that was meant to be a plot hole, but it does come across as one. At least, again, in terms of thinking about it, in terms of like structure and making sure, like, you're making sure in your writing that characters are behaving smart enough and believable enough, and still being, getting that overrun by whatever horror they need to be within that context. So yeah, I just wanted to point that one out. At any rate, so we do see that this Guardian does some overnight spying about who is now in her household. And in the process of seeing things, Andy then sees said Guardian bring Oliver elsewhere, but doesn't really. This is another flag for us more so, but it seems just like an oddity, or like, I don't know, maybe he could have brought it up as a questioning aspect of it. Nonetheless, Andy wakes up with his pants being wet, and he is old enough for that to not be the case, so there is definitely already something like head tilty going on there. But then they proceed to be cut to the next scene where they attend the father's funeral, and this is where our if the Guardian sneaking around wasn't a flag enough, this is the first real red flag that we, the audience, see. I would argue that the first two were more so in the yellow range of that's a bit weird. But this is oh, there is something bad happening here. As we see when everyone else leaves, the Guardian takes a sample of the father's hair. And even gestures to do this bizarre kiss on the cheek after, again, Andy leaves. So, she insists that they, do a little bit more of a celebration rather than mourn. So, she helps them participate in a drinking game, and they proceed to do so. So, they get a little tipsy and have a little fun, dance away the night. And we get a nice little moment where the Guardian and Andy have this back-to-back where they're both, or she's primarily, reflecting here. So we're getting more bits of information about her, and we get some information about him as well, how they weren't originally related, the siblings that being, and how their parents met up, got wed, and they became related, obviously. At some juncture, it seems to be the implication of this scene. But then we see the reveal, at least one of them, where the Guardian pisses in this cup, proceeds to do so, and wets Andy's bed. So now we know that she was the one responsible doing it the first time. And proceeds like nothing happened and bathes or takes care of the clothes as well as bathing Oliver. And we get this interesting implication, I suppose, where we see this in the mirror, this through Oliver, but in the mirror we see this girl. Um, so the next day, the two ladies, the Guardian and Piper, head out while Andy hangs out with Oliver. He hands Oliver a knife to cut something, but he ends up, like, eating the knife as well. It's kind of like this grotesque, like, ugh moment. And Andy sees that he needs to bring this child to the hospital and brings them back past this white salt line. In doing so, the child begins to freak the fuck out. This causes Andy to have his own set of panic attack while, as the other two return. And, the Guardian's not so upset about this. But at some later juncture, we do see that the Guardian lets Oliver eat some of that dead hair from before. And we, the audience, at least, get to see this nice upward view, as now we see the full encircling of the white. I don't know what it is, like this white dust or something that's fully encircled around the house. So, Andy sees something really odd, that being his undead father's, and say something as well, while taking a shower. He proceeds to slip and fall unconscious, due to freaking the fuck out enough to do so, and fall unconscious due to the wet floor. So he ends up in the hospital, and he's freaking out, hearing what he had said, and wants to get out to help Piper immediately. But we do also begin to see how the rain is starting to remove some of that circling that was made there through the rain. Anyways, Piper goes with the Guardian. And we see the Guardian get to the hospital to make a promise to Andy about not letting Piper out in the rain, but immediately does so when she returns to Piper. And I didn't talk about it before, but the movie does open up with this sort of occult, like, ritual video that is playing, and throughout the movie we get these small snippets here and there. I didn't write them down when they specifically happen, but this one seemed particularly poignant enough to let out now. As this one has the first glimpse of, like, audible dialogue about purging into a new body of sorts. It seems to be that this is what this Guardian has been doing is indeed some sort of prolonged ritual to get, as we will later discover, spoiler alert, that she's trying to get back her daughter. We then see, at night, that the Guardian hits Piper. But before doing so, had sprayed herself with Andy's scent. So that way, since she can't see what happened, she was smelling and through the perception of her smell instead, she assumed that it was indeed Andy that attacked her. And we see, as well, the audience at the very most, that Oliver is not looking so hot currently. But Andy manages to snag a picture, seeing how she has allowed this to go this far. So, Andy is through with this and goes on an offensive attack and sort of defensive as she puts up hands as well. It is only Piper who is able to discontinue the fighting between the two. So instead, he decides to take a more measured approach in going to the initial guardianship location where they went to when the father passed away. Here, he finds a missing picture of an individual named Connor, and sees the similarities between this and Oliver, and he quickly puts two and two together about that this Oliver is indeed this Connor kid. In digressing, so he's gone to talk to her, the office lady, about how the Guardian is not suited to take care of them, that she is doing some weird shit, and that she will then go with them. Now, this is a good horror movie, and that this is the first time where I'm thinking, like, after seeing this movie, if I was, in the social worker life of this particular field, and if I had seen this movie, I'd be like, I probably should take an officer with me, just in case. That seems to be the lesson learned in this film, because she's the one that goes in. Anyway. So there are more weird bits about how we see Oliver's transformation throughout the movie, of him eating the table, and even starting to eat his own skin. And beginning to eat this dead body of the daughter that is in the refrigerator. Anyway, Andy, while getting a ride over there, is preparing to call Piper. However, the Guardian has the phone, as she dropped off Piper earlier to, I believe it was some, sports thing for blind individuals to help with their senses, it seems, in particular as well. But at any rate, so the Guardian is now trying to clean up, knowing that this other lady is coming over with Andy in tow. So they arrive, and she seems to have, for the most part, seemingly cleaned up, or what she thought was enough, while Andy sneaks around to the back, seeing Oliver eat a frozen body. Meanwhile, the office worker notices some blood on the Guardian, and this causes the Guardian to break down and to fight her out. And Andy pulls her away to the back to also see the atrocities of the dead body eating. Unfortunately for the both of them, they both get ran over by the Guardian. Based on that, it would seem like the initial hit killed the officer outright, and then proceedingly drowns Andy after the fact. So yeah, not everyone makes it out of this one. So Piper's now the only one left, in fact. with that in mind, as Piper returns, is brought back as well, being blind and all, she starts to figure something's off when she overhears what she assumes is her brother, ends up being Oliver, touches his head, and he's like baldish, and she had asked earlier what color his hair was, and she had answered some color, like red or something like that. So she was able to, based on touch, figure out that the Guardian was now lying to Piper. So she tries to fight off the Guardian. So she inevitably knocks out Piper and almost drowns her, but has this moment of clarity, perhaps, given her enough time to allow Piper to get up and get away and run off, while she slowly but surely begins to go toward the body of her dead daughter. Meanwhile, the child, Oliver, makes his way past the circle and begins freaking out again. And the police have, they probably were notified at some point, like, the social worker probably hasn't returned yet, probably should check that out. So they're arriving on the scene now. And we see as well that Piper is picked up by this happenstance of a vehicle coming by and is brought along. And interestingly enough, on the side of Connor, or Oliver, or now Connor, he seems to have the wherewithal to say his name is Connor now. Interestingly enough. I don't know what that's meant to imply necessarily, but we do end on the shot with the mother holding her dead daughter, and presumably, while the movie ends there, it is safe to kind of place the final pieces. I think that this is a fine place to end the film. So overall, I would say Bring Her Back is definitely a really solid film. In fact, based off of what I've learned about this film, it's made by this group of YouTubers that became filmmakers and did a previous film that I had also watched, which was like Talk to Me, I think it was called. That movie was a little bit meh, I felt. I think this movie was significantly stronger than their previous installment. So they have been seemingly really hard at work here, because I think this is a vast improvement from their previous film. Bring Her Back, for a movie that I have not seen any trailers for. Again, just word of mouth has gotten to me through the power of YouTube, and man, if you come across this video, I'm gonna also recommend it. Again, despite mayhaps that one minor plot hole, I think other than that, it's still a relatively tight script. And again, you can sort of piece together the things that are probably going to occur, like how the people that picked up Piper are probably going to take care of her, how since, the Guardians left with like two dead body, or at least a dead body within the vicinity and a dead body next to her, she probably will be arrested at least, or something of that sort. Andy's fate is sealed, and the other lady, or the Connor, is seemingly back to normal, quote unquote, though his body is a little bit worse for wears at the end of the film. So yeah, that is Bring Her Back. So again, if this review comes across to the people making this, I look forward to your next project. Just keep in mind in what I said about the minor plot hole. And again, I would argue that it might be. So just leaving it at that. But as an overall score, I'd probably still give it an 8 out of 10. I still think, again, even outside of that, this is still a really strong and overall tight script. Again, outside of that one plot hole or whatever. Really, really good. So yeah, definitely a strong recommendation. And you know, if you've followed my channel long enough, I have reviewed tons of horror movies, and if I'm recommending a horror movie, that's a good sign, because more often than not, more of them end up on the rants than the reviews, so this should be a sign that you should definitely check it out if you have any interest in the horror genre, and supporting creators that want to create. So, that is my review. And if you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description when I'll head you to my petition about small YouTubers. So get to my PayPal where you can help support me and my channel directly, and third to my Discord server. You can join Collab Shields, all that cool stuff. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.